Hey everyone, I hope that you're doing well. I wanted to post a quick video to give some of my summary thoughts after we've finished week one. So, believe it or not, we have finished the first week of our Latin American history class. I think we're off to a strong start. I'm really enjoying getting to know all of you through your introductions as well as through the work that you've been doing in the reading responses and on defining Latin America. And so I'm going to, just to let you know how things will generally work, I like to provide a lot of feedback to you. And so if you don't know where to find the feedback in Brightspace, please let me know. When I do the reading responses, I provide feedback either as a response to you on Twitter or as a response to you on the discussion board, depending on where you've posted those. And generally what I try to do there isn't so much like, it's not, I'm not meaning to give you punitive feedback or anything, like you should have done this or that or the other, but instead, I want to keep conversations going. So I'll ask follow-up questions, and I love it when you jump in and respond there in that way. And remember that for units 2 through 6, you will need to respond to one another and to me, so that's a great way to get your responses in, by just continuing those conversations, and try to keep conversations going with one another in whichever of the two platforms you're using for those reading responses. All right. Also, I wanted to point you to the activity feed at the bottom of the page, bottom of the home page in Brightspace. I'm going to add a couple of what I hope, or what I think are fun, hopefully they're fun, little questions, things that I've just seen recently on Twitter or other places that you can potentially respond to earn a couple of points extra credit on the Defining Latin America discussion. So I just added some extra points there if you decide to take part, and if you don't, it's okay. Lastly, before I jump into some of my comments, if you weren't able to complete any of the assignments for Unit 1, you can still do those, as I've mentioned. There are no penalties for late work. I do want you to, be cognizant of not falling too far behind, though. I know you can only do what you can do. But just because this is an 8-week class, so we have kind of an abbreviated schedule as it is. If you have any concerns about that, let me know, and I'll see what I can do to help. I often suggest completing the work that's coming due in the week that we're currently on, the unit that we're currently on, before going back and making things up that you've missed. That way you don't feel like you're falling behind as you try to catch up. So that might work for you. Please bring me any questions or concerns that you have. All right, so defining Latin America. I do have a question, as I kind of alluded to, that I'm going to post in the activity feed if you'd like to jump in on that. And I really appreciated the comments that, yes, Latin America is a process, it is culture, it is a region. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so diverse. Or the way that Latin America came to be, if you got a chance to read Michel Gobat, he delves, and that was an optional reading, so if you didn't, don't worry about it, but he delves more into the origins of that term. So they were imposed, or the term Latin America was imposed by the French to try to explain their role in colonization and try to make some sort of constructed affinity with the people of the region from essentially Mexico South in the Western Hemisphere. And so the people of Latin America, especially political leaders, grabbed on to that title and started to call themselves Latin Americans in response to U.S. imperialism in the middle of the 19th century, especially after the U.S.-Mexico War, where the United States took about half of Mexico's national territory. We're living in that area that was taken by the United States. So, again, there are different ways of kind of coming at this question of how and why Latin America is what it is. But that history is also why Chastain says it's really hard to tell one single story about Latin America, and we probably wouldn't even want to try to do that, even though that's essentially what he's doing, right? He's putting together a history of Latin America that is a kind of single narrative to give us a big picture overview of the region and the main events that have happened there. And for that reason, as many of you critiqued him, he doesn't spend as much time on individual perspectives, and he doesn't spend as much time kind of parsing out what the details are for certain things, because he's giving us that big picture overview so that when we get those details, we can understand them better. We can have the context to put them into a framework where we understand what was happening. That's the reason we're also reading the Wood and Alexander book. That book provides some of those specific perspectives, those case studies, those personal accounts, whatever it might be. It contains both primary and secondary excerpts from different sources. And so together, those two books help us out to get that fuller picture. So that's one of the reasons I've chosen them. Also, as several of you have pointed out, we need to think of Chastain's position as an outsider, right? Same for me as I study Latin America or even the U.S.-Mexico borderlands. In many ways, I'm an outsider. I've come to this region from somewhere else. My cultural background and heritage is not the same as many of the people who live here. And so I have to take that account in terms of the questions I'm able to ask and the relationships I try to forge with people that I do research with. Lastly, in this video, I want to talk about the distinction between primary and secondary sources. We've had some good conversations start around that, and the only thing I really want to say is that it's really easy, and I understand why many of us want to think that primary sources are the best sources, right? Because they're closest to the events that took place. They're also potentially the most biased, though, because people who wrote about things or created sources at the time usually had an axe to grind or a certain stake in what was going on, and so they present a certain perspective or argument, whereas those who are creating secondary sources try to investigate and read through those biases and understand, we need to get all of these different perspectives to really get the big picture of what was going on. So that's what secondary sources can do. All right, so I'll leave it there for now. Looking forward to continuing to study Latin America with you all, and I'll talk to you soon.